October 12, 2025. In the narrow, choppy waters of the Gulf of Aden, 28 speedboats carrying more than 240 Somali pirates were approaching the USNS Providence, a U.S. Navy weapons transport ship that was secretly delivering 1,200 artillery shells, 320 Javelin missiles, and nearly 8 million rounds of ammunition to a Marine task force near the coast of Yemen. Under the command of Abdurrahman Qadir Yusuf, a pirate kingpin turned global arms dealer, the pirates opened fire with RPG-7s, AK-47s, and DSHK heavy machine guns, tracer bullets tearing through the night. But this was no ordinary act of piracy. Behind the attack was an international organization that traded weapons for drugs, stretching from the Horn of Africa to the cocaine coast of South America. But they made a fatal mistake. The retaliation was immediate. 3 CH-47 Chinooks roared in from the south, each carrying 60 Navy SEALs armed with M4A1 carbines and M320 grenade launchers. Overhead, 2 AH-64E Apache helicopters hovered with Hellfires and 1,200 rounds of ammunition, while an MQ-9 Reaper streamed coordinates back to the fleet. Will the pirates get their loot, or will they be wiped out by America's wrath? Join me as I find out. 03:10 a.m., October 12th, 2025, 50 nautical miles off Ras Hafun, Gulf of Aden. The sea was eerily calm that night, the black water concealing what was about to be revealed. Beneath the dim light of the horizon, the U.S. Navy supply ship USNS Providence moved silently through the Gulf of Aden. It had more than 1,200 artillery shells, 320 Javelin anti-tank missiles, and 40,000 rounds of ammunition on board. A cargo worth $280 million, enough firepower to equip an entire Marine Expeditionary Battalion for a week of combat. Then the radar screen began to flicker. At first, the crew of the destroyer escort USS Meridian thought it was interference, the echoes of passing fishing boats or cargo ships. But within seconds, the picture became clear. 28 speedboats, each traveling at more than 38 knots, were closing in rapidly from 3 directions. Their numbers were growing, more than 240 armed men forming a swarm. The enemy flag was quickly identified, the Khalid Front, a pirate organization led by Abdurrahman Qadir Yusuf, a former warlord turned arms dealer. His fleet was not looking for ransom, it was looking for the cargo itself. Intelligence later revealed his partnership with the Black Tide Cartel, a violent drug organization that uses Somali waters to trade weapons for drugs, with criminal networks stretching as far as South America, responsible for laundering more than $50 million a year through East African ports. Captain Alan Brenner of the Meridian understood immediately. If the pirates reached the Providence, a single hit to the ammunition depot would create an explosion equivalent to 30,000 pounds of TNT, enough to light up half the Gulf of Aden. Sirens blared throughout the ship. Red lights illuminated the bridge. Radio commands continued. Headquarters, all to your positions. In that instant, the calm waters of the bay transformed into a battlefield. 2 American warships faced off against hundreds of attackers. Outnumbered, the crew braced for impact. Everyone knew the first shots were seconds away. Will the U.S. fleet stand its ground? Or will the waves of Somalia swallow an American warship whole? 03:25 a.m. Within minutes, the ocean seemed to tear itself apart. The pirate flotilla broke formation and lunged forward, 28 fast boats slicing across the waves at 40 knots, their twin engines howling in the darkness. Each vessel carried 8 to 10 gunmen, armed to the teeth with RPG-7 launchers, PKM machine guns, and DSHK 50 caliber cannons welded to their bows. Tracer rounds slashed through the night like red comets in a violent constellation. From the deck of the USNS Providence, the first warning erupted through the intercom. Multiple contacts inbound, 1,200 yards and closing fast. Searchlights flared to life, cutting sharp white spears through the haze. Seconds later, an RPG screamed out of the darkness and slammed into the Providence's stern. The blast punched through the steel bulkhead, gouging a 4-foot crater near the cargo bay. The deck shuddered. Alarms howled. Damage control teams sprinted into the inferno, fighting to keep the flames from reaching the ammunition magazine below. 1,200 naval shells, enough to unleash 30,000 pounds of TNT, a firestorm that could turn half the Gulf of Aden into a glowing wound visible from orbit. The pirates pressed their advantage. At less than 300 yards, more than 300 AK-47s, 40 RPG-7s, and 20 DSHK heavy machine guns opened up at once. The night exploded into chaos. Nearly 50,000 rounds fired in the first 10 minutes. Gunfire drowned out the ocean itself. Bullets tore through antennas, lifeboats, and deck rails as sparks cascaded like molten rain. The U.S. Navy struck back with surgical fury. From the USS Meridian, anchored 600 yards off Providence's starboard beam, two 20mm Phalanx C-1WS guns spun to life, spitting 4,500 tungsten shells per minute. The sky erupted with white-orange tracers as three pirate skiffs were vaporized in seconds. Deck gunners followed with .50 caliber bursts, punching holes through wooden hulls and igniting fuel tanks. Fireballs rolled across the waves, each one briefly revealing shattered debris and bodies hurled into the Black Sea. Still, 5 boats broke through the perimeter. Rockets streaked toward the Providence. One RPG struck the aft railing, detonating beside a javelin launcher. The shockwave hurled sailors across the deck. 2 were burned, 1 blinded by shrapnel. Fire crews charged through smoke and chaos, quenching the blaze just seconds before it reached the ammunition hold. 10 seconds slower and the Providence would have vanished in a single incandescent flash. By dawn, at least 12 pirate boats had been obliterated. 70 fighters lay dead or wounded, yet the assault did not stop. Overhead, an MQ-9 Reaper drone transmitted live footage to both ships. Its thermal cameras revealed new contacts, dozens of speedboats converging from the east. A second wave, nearly 100 more, moving in perfect coordination through encrypted radio channels. This was no desperate raid. It was a meticulously planned assault, designed to seize American weapons intact. Can the Navy's next move crush the pirates' empire, or will the hunters become the hunted? 5:10 a.m. Smoke from burning boats still drifted across the Gulf of Aden. More than 70 pirate corpses floated amid the wreckage, blackened wood, twisted metal, and half-submerged boats, diesel fuel spilling into the waves. The USNS Providence was damaged but still afloat. Damage control reported 11 sailors injured, 2 in critical condition, but the ammunition was intact, a miracle measured in seconds. From the control room aboard the USS Meridian, analysts began piecing together the digital trail. Signals picked up by pirate radios pointed inland, toward a cluster of warehouses near the Barawi Peninsula, a notorious smuggling corridor long shrouded in corruption and silence. At 5:47 a.m., satellite imagery confirmed what the naval battle had revealed. This was not an isolated group. It was a network. Thermal scanning revealed 12 fortified structures along the shore, each apparently containing crates of weapons and ammunition. Logistical data collated from Camp Lemon in Djibouti revealed staggering numbers. An estimated 15 tons of small arms, 180 RPG launchers, 2 million rounds of ammunition, and 40,000 gallons of fuel reserves. Enough to sustain a private army for months. Financial intelligence added another shock. A money trail traced through offshore accounts in Aden, Djibouti, and Bogota showed more than $28 million had been transferred in the past 6 weeks through shell companies linked to the Black Tide cartel. The pirates weren't petty thieves. They were couriers in a global arms trade, trading guns for cocaine. As the data poured in, Captain Brenner gave a single command: go to the source. The radio chatter died down. Every sailor knew what that meant. The next phase wouldn't take place at sea. It would take place on Somali soil, where the real heart of the operation lay deep under the sand. What happens when U.S. Special Forces take the fight onto Somali soil? Keep watching, you won't believe the outcome. At 8 a.m., the order came through: execute Don Cleaver. From the deck of the USS Meridian, 3 CH-47 Chinook helicopters lifted into the rising heat, their blades carving the morning haze. Each carried 60 U.S. Navy SEALs, armed with M4A1 carbines, M320 grenade launchers, and thermal optics. Above them, 2 AH-64E Apache gunships circled with 1,200 rounds of 30mm cannon fire and Hellfire missiles locked and ready. The target, a fortified coastal compound outside Barawi, where intelligence had confirmed 15 tons of weapons and millions in cartel cash were hidden. At 8:17 a.m., the first Apache fired. A single Hellfire missile struck a fuel depot, detonating 40,000 gallons of diesel in an explosion that shook the peninsula. The blast leveled the perimeter walls and set off a chain reaction in the ammunition cache, flames reaching nearly 200 feet into the air. Within seconds, SEAL teams fast-roped from the Chinooks into the chaos below. Resistance was immediate and ferocious. Over 150 militants opened fire with RPG-7s, AK-103 rifles, and Chinese-made Type 80 machine guns. Tracers stitched across the sand as SEALs advanced through smoke and dust. One squad breached the main warehouse, finding crates of Iranian mortars, Russian PKM belts, and documents stamped with the insignia of the Black Tide cartel. Another team stormed a communications room, recovering encrypted laptops tied to Yemen-based brokers and South American narcotics shipments. By 8:42 a.m., the second Apache engaged the Western Ridge, cutting down a convoy of 6 pickup trucks attempting to flee with the warlord Abdurrahman Qadir Yusuf. His vehicle was struck by a burst of 30mm rounds, flipping end over end in a plume of fire. Qadir's reign ended where it began, in the dust of the Somali coast. The fighting raged for nearly 40 minutes. 91 militants were confirmed killed, 46 captured, and 12 warehouses destroyed. Among the rubble, SEALs uncovered $32 million in cash, 500 kilograms of cocaine, and shipping manifests linking arms dealers in Mogadishu, Aden, and Caracas. 6 hostages, including 2 American engineers, were freed, trembling but alive. As the last Chinook lifted off at 9:20 a.m., smoke still curled over the shattered compound. The mission had succeeded. The supply chain feeding terror and narcotics across 3 continents had been cut open and burned to ash. But deep down, every man on board knew this was no final victory, only the first battle in a far greater war that was still unfolding. 10 a.m., October 12, 2025. By mid-morning, the Gulf of Aden was quiet again, but it was the silence that follows devastation. The Barawi compound burned for more than 6 hours, columns of black smoke visible 30 miles out to sea. When the SEAL teams regrouped at Camp Lemon in Djibouti, the final numbers came in. What they had uncovered was not a pirate den. It was a transnational operation spanning 3 continents, 7 shell companies, and $50 million in illicit arms. Battle damage reports listed 91 militants killed, 46 captured, and 15 tons of weapons destroyed, including 200 RPGs, 2 million rounds of ammunition, and 12 heavy trucks retrofitted for combat. The explosions had erased 12 warehouses, collapsed 2 underground tunnels, and wiped out $32 million in cash reserves belonging to the Black Tide cartel. In one of the bunkers, investigators found ledgers detailing shipments to Yemen, Sudan, Venezuela, and even Colombia's Guajira coast, where cartel traffickers traded cocaine for rifles. The USNS Providence, though damaged, remained operational, a testament to the discipline of her crew. Engineers patched 4 hull breaches, secured 1,200 artillery shells, and transferred 320 javelins to a secondary vessel. Not a single round was lost. The potential catastrophe, a blast equivalent to 25,000 pounds of TNT, had been avoided by sheer human precision. But victory came with revelation. Intelligence analysts reviewing encrypted data from Barawi discovered communications routed through Tehran and Aden, confirming that Iranian intermediaries had brokered several of the weapon exchanges. The pirates were not freelancers. They were instruments in a far deeper shadow war, one that blended terror, narcotics, and proxy funding into a single toxic current. As the sun sank over the Indian Ocean, Captain Brenner stood on the deck of the Meridian, watching smoke drift over the horizon. The message was clear and merciless. Attack a U.S. vessel, and the response will not stop at sea. It will come for you, wherever you hide. The aftermath of Operation Dawn Cleaver echoed far beyond Somalia. Ports tightened security. U.S. allies launched audits on maritime shipments, and global markets trembled at the exposure of an arms-for-drugs network worth hundreds of millions. The pirates' empire was gone, but their financiers remained in the shadows. And as intelligence units traced the next wave of encrypted transactions, one chilling truth emerged. Barawi was only one node in a far larger web, and the war for the oceans had just begun. As dusk settled over the Gulf, the last fires from Barawi flickered out, their smoke blending with the red horizon. What began as a midnight ambush by 240 armed pirates had ended as a continental shockwave, exposing a network that had quietly moved weapons, drugs, and blood money across half the planet. The sea that once hid their crimes now carried the proof of their destruction. On board the USS Meridian, sailors stood in silence, staring at the distant coastline still wreathed in haze. For them, victory came not with celebration, but reflection. They had faced death at sea, a ship loaded with 8 million pounds of explosives, one stray rocket away from a catastrophe that could have wiped out every vessel within miles. Yet through precision and discipline, they had held the line. The Providence remained afloat, a scarred but unbroken witness to what human resolve could endure. News of the operation spread within hours. Across Washington, intelligence agencies cross-referenced the recovered files. The numbers were staggering. Over $50 million in illegal transfers, 15 tons of weapons, and links to 4 international cartels, all funneled through the same shadow network that had nearly turned the Gulf of Aden into a war zone. But behind the statistics lay a deeper warning. The age of piracy had evolved. No longer desperate fishermen with rifles. These were mercenaries funded by global syndicates, armed with weapons once reserved for armies. The ocean had become the new battlefield, and the front lines were everywhere. As night fell once more, Captain Brenner's final report carried a single line that would echo far beyond the Navy's decks. The sea is no longer a border. It's a mirror of the wars we refuse to see coming, and somewhere beyond that horizon, another storm was already forming. If you found this story powerful, please subscribe and share it. Your support helps us bring more untold battles to light.